This episode of the Better 2 podcast is brought to you by Kitty Mystic and DM Needham, author of the Better to Burn Out series. Today, I would like to tell you a little bit about one of my favorite places, Synergy Collective, a bohemian lifestyle brand curating wellness for the mind, body, home, and soul. Located in the heart of the Midwest, Rockford, Illinois. Inside the storefront and online, you'll find a beautiful selection of crystals and metaphysical tools, boho apparel and accessories, sustainable home and beauty items, books, candles, and other unique gifts. They also offer a variety of community events, classes, and workshops in their Rockford location, including some select classes that are taught by me. So I invite you to explore the collective at www.shopsynergycollective.com and use code BETTER215 at checkout for 15% off your first online purchase. Hi, gang. Welcome to the Better 2 podcast. I'm your host, Donna. Today's guest is Kat Rambo and Jennifer Brozek, and they are here to talk about their book, The Reinvented Detective. Well, here's the interesting part about that. While we do talk about the book, we also talk about Gen X, being Gen X, and we talk about scams, we talk about dating, and we talk about energy exchange because they plan on doing the reinvented currency after this book. So we talked about how currency is not always something that is tangible. And we talk about a lot of other things too. So tune in. Hey, Donna from the Better 2 podcast here. If you've listened to my show, you know that it always sounds great. That's thanks to the guys at Third Ear Audio Productions. Third Ear Audio helps podcasters, broadcasters, musicians, and business owners get their important messages out to their audience. Rich and the Third Ear Audio team are easy to work with. They're efficient and understand that your message is important to you. With quick turnaround and the true caring of your needs, Third Ear Audio is your go-to for any audio message. Reach out to Third Ear Audio at 312-388-5596. Rich and his team will deliver for you. That's 312-388-5596. Or you could email them at info@thirdearaudio.com or visit them on the web at www.thirdearaudio.com. Hi, Jennifer. Hi, Kat. How are you doing today, ladies?
Doing well.
I'm doing pretty good. I had a big week, but I have no brain today, so it's going to be awesome.
Well, I don't know where you guys fall into the astrology world, but yes, like everything is in Aquarius right now, which is an air planet. So the energy feels really, I would say starting last Thursday or Friday, my mind has been scattered. So yeah, I think that's just kind of the energy in the air too.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do dabble in
well,
that
last
stuff.
week I had 2 publications and an interview, and I typed the end on the draft of a novel.
Nice.
So like I really am like
Brain dead.
I'm a fire sign, by the way. So
I could testify because I've been watching her. She does we have co-writing sessions with my little community that I run, and Jen has been in there in co-working, just cranking out the words and finishing stuff up. So bravo.
That's awesome. Congratulations. That is
co-writing has been a savior when I have the don't wannas.
Yeah.
Well, there are those times where you, as a writer, you just get stuck and you can't, without any other motivation, how are you going to continue to go? You know, and I was going to ask how the collaboration came about for your book, The Reinvented Detective, but obviously if you guys are doing co-writing sessions, this is most likely because you have a friendship and you guys have collaborated on other works. This is how this came about, correct?
Well, I'm gonna let Kat do that.
We are longtime friends. I don't remember what year we met, but we used to do co-writing in person at our local bookstore, and I met Jen at a number of conventions, and then we worked on the SFWA board together. At least I coaxed her into running for the SFWA board. I still apologize. I've done that to a number of people. Jen's not the only one. And then at some point, Arc Manor asked me to edit this book called The Reinvented Heart. And I was like, yeah. And then about a few weeks later, I was like, actually, I got a lot on my plate. And I suggested to them that they bring Jen in instead of me. And I'll let Jen segue then into her account of what happened.
Well, having watched Kat be the president of SFWA and me be on the board of directors, I I've always wanted to work with her. And when she brought this to me, I was like, well, it's not my project, so I don't have the real gumption, the like grab it by the theme and and run with it. So I was like, no, I don't want to do this on my own, but I'll do it with you.
Yeah. Yeah.
And because she has more experience in certain areas, plus she knows the publisher better. And I wanted to see how she worked as an editor as well.
Okay.
And it's been one of a really great collaboration because we have different strengths, and our differences in strengths, I think, play well with each other. We enjoy each other's company. We do, in fact, we have a weekly Zoom call. We may not do it today, though, Jen, because we've already interviewed together. So, yeah, it's just been great. And the Reinvented Detective has followed on the heels of the Reinvented Heart. And we really want to do another one, but we're waiting to see what happens. So please buy the Reinvented Detective so we can do the next one, which is going to be the Reinvented Coin. So it'll be like futuristic stories about economics and money, which I think is super, super interesting. I know there's folks who can be like, what? But I think there's all sorts of super cool stuff
You could
there.
absolutely do some beautiful stories about what constitutes currency and what is there to buy. The farther we get into the future and the more advanced the technology gets.
Yeah.
Well, even
And
if you,
I have some people I absolutely want in that specific anthology, like Wale Talabi. He would be amazing.
well, even if you
Absolutely.
don't, when you look at currency, we look at the tangible currency, but even energy exchanges between people is a
Right.
currency, and people don't think about that. They think, the random hookup. Let's just go have random hookups. Do you realize every time you have a random hookup, you're exchanging energy with somebody?
You are.
And
You
people
are.
don't think about that. And it's so there's a currency even in the transaction that we're doing now
Oh,
because there's
yeah.
an energy exchange, and we don't look at that. So we think of, you know, currency as tangible, but it's not always.
It's one of those things where you can see if you're having a conversation with someone and you have the connection, and then they pick up the phone and that connection just sort of goes.
Mm-hmm.
And also the whole idea of hookups, literally. I was just thinking about that.
I
I
just
mean,
like the gesture that accompanied that.
it's just it's one of those things. It's people don't really talk about that because I mean
Yeah.
we are a
Yeah.
society, especially now with technology. You can go on an app and you can find somebody to hook up with, and you don't know them from Adam, and you hook up, and then you go on, and it's like, do you realize that now you've had that person's energy, and if they're not the nicest person, you can bathe, sure, but are you going to energetically clean yourself, or you're not thinking about that?
Well,
Just
and
saying.
yeah, yeah. And I think it's yeah, well, it's weird because the internet has made this sort of both a very small world and a very large freaking world that if you have access uh and I don't know if you guys were reading, it was I can't remember, like the New York Magazine financial columnist just got scammed by somebody where
Mhm.
uh basically I don't know how they did this. They conned her into turning over $50,000 and basically putting it into a shoebox, and then the white Mercedes pulled up and she passed the money in through the window. I was just reading about it today because I'm just like, how did you? But they had like said, like, we know your child, they're surveilling you. We know your child's playing in the front room, and they showed a level of detail that really freaked her out. So I'm sorry, I interrupted you.
No, no,
Read
no,
on.
no, no. Because what I was going to say is, there's also I saw somebody sent me something from National Geographic's their little TV show on YouTube, and it's about like scammers from overseas who basically will do black magic to try to solicit people to pay. They will claim that they are a guy or a girl and they're actually a guy. And then they go to a voodoo priestess or a priestess of whatever practice they're doing, because I don't want to lump voodoo in there because I know some people. But then they create this whole dark spell. And if they don't pay, they're going to end up dead. And it's just like, what the, so I mean, there's a lot of things where, and my own experience, because I lost my husband, I've had men reach out to me and start with the whole oil rig, doctor, whichever you want. And I mean, they've hit on me from anywhere from Pinterest to Goodreads, which always cracks me up. It's like, well, what books do you like? Do you realize I'm an author? It says right there, author. So what are you doing? And I mean, it's just the whole fact that they start out with this whole scam. And it's like, if you really pay attention, they're all the same, because they always start that their wife died or they're alone. And then it starts with the rest of the pity trip.
Yeah. Oh, the other one that I like that I just recently got, I think it was on Instagram, which is called Mostly Cats, because it's mostly pictures of my cats. They wanted me to answer their private message, and I wasn't going to at first, but then finally I'm like, all right, this is a new scam. Let's see what they're going to throw at me. Oh, well, you look just like my friend's sister who died of cancer, and I just wanted to say that you're so lovely. And I'm just like, you realize that there's, okay, no. All my life I've gotten you look like somebody I know. I have a very generic face in the, I think I know you. You look like somebody I used to date. You look like my friend's sister. I'm used to that. I'm also, we are all women of a certain age. I'm 53. I was just like, okay. So I lived before and after the internet.
Yes.
Yeah. I remember when Google didn't exist.
Yes.
But the amount of crap that comes to any woman online, and you're just like, if it has, I'm a military doctor, a pilot,
oil rig worker,
medical person, entrepreneur, I love that one. And you have 7 images, and it's always a guy working out and 2 kids. It's like, I don't have a wife anymore. She's not in the picture. I'm like, I don't care.
Yeah. Well, when they also start, usually they'll start off, hello, beautiful. Okay, if I was in my 20s and I needed your validation, then sure, I'd fall for that. But I am not in my 20s anymore. I know I have wrinkles. I have gray hair. I'm well aware of what I look like. So maybe I'm beautiful to you. Maybe I'm not. But don't start out the gate that way.
Yeah.
Because even a guy at a bar back in the day, if they started that with me, I was just like, really? No.
What's your favorite pickup line anybody's ever used on you? Worst?
I don't. Well, okay. So it wasn't so much. I knew this person. I knew that this what I would call the date from hell. I knew this person. He was my landlord's son, and we talked every morning. So one day he asked me out. I'm, I think 21, 22, somewhere in there. And he shows up at my house. And do you know what a glass insulator cover is from like the telephone poles?
Okay. Yeah.
So he's like, I got you something. I'm like, okay. So I open it up, and here's this glass insulator cover. Mind you, I'm dressed because I left work. And so I'm in business attire. So I'm kind of still in a suit. I'm kind of dressed up. He's wearing a members only jacket, a t-shirt, and jeans. So we know that this is not going to go well. This is just all right. So we go to dinner, and he tells me, I order my food. He orders the exact same thing. And he looks at me and goes, we're meant to be together. We ordered the same thing. And I'm just like, okay, all right. So we end up eating dinner, and we go to walk around the mall. I go in a bookstore. He goes, why do you want to go in there? Okay. And there was some there was a couple other red flags, but I'm going to fast forward. We get back to my apartment, and I am deliberately, I am so tired. Oh, cool. You have a record collection? And this is the 80s. And I'm like, yeah, I do. And so he walks in and starts looking, and I was very much not so hardcore about get out of here. And so he starts looking through my record collection. I am yawning and yawning and yawning, trying to get him to get the hint. And finally he's like, I really think we should do this again. We're really destined to be together. And I'm like,
Our food's the same. Our records are the same.
Well, and to be fair, I also made my prom date crying, end up in the men's room crying through prom.
Oh God.
So, yeah.
Oh, you heartless woman.
I know. I'm not proud of that, but he wanted something else, and we were set up for by friends, and I just really wasn't going to go there because he wants to make out while we're dancing like everybody else. And I'm just like, let's just take it slow. Yeah. And he excuses himself, and I spend the prom with my best friend's boyfriend, who I knew anyway. We didn't do anything. We watched the band because we're both in bands at the time. And my date ended up in the men's room crying.
Oh,
yeah. So,
well,
yeah.
I knew my husband when I met him. There were two things. One, I met him at a D&D game at Microsoft, run by my fabulous ex-boss. Two, when we would take walks together, it's kind of a sniff test. So we would walk down the street, and there's a specific house by itself. And I said, when the apocalypse comes, I'm taking over that house. And he looked at it, and he looked at me, and he's like, why? And until I explained it, and then he's like, oh, also, you don't have to worry about mice because one of the Microsoft garages is underneath it. And I was just like, all right, we got something there. And the final thing was our libraries overlapped by a third.
Yeah.
Nice.
I love to read, and I like the fact that he reads. He reads more than I do at this point.
Well, I think as a writer, we read, but it's like it gets to a point where if you're in a project, you don't want to really dig into somebody else's book because you don't want at least for me, I don't want the influence.
You don't want it seeping in.
Right.
And I try not to, particularly if it's writers with a really strong voice. Like good luck getting Mark Twain out of your head after reading like a solid stint of Mark Twain. I tried that one year. We didn't have a television, and so that was how we entertained ourselves that summer. Read through Tom Sawyer and then read through Huckleberry Finn. And then the semester started, and there were like 2 weeks where all I could write was like bad Twain pastiche, because that voice just gets in your head. And I finally wrote a story that exercised it, but oh my God, I was worried Mark Twain was living in me forever.
Yeah, I never read in the genre that I'm writing in, but fortunately I write in a lot of different genres. And after I finish the Shadowrun, after my contracts are done there, I want to write what I call men's soap operas. Executioner, Mac Bolan, the Destroyer books, the 50,000, 60,000 word things. Yeah. I've got this character in my head. I've got the rules to his world. I'm very excited about it, but I'm finishing up one novel. I've got 2 more novels in my contract for my unofficial colors quartet now. And I also edit, but
you're a busy woman.
Yeah.
Well, yes, because I'm very much a self-starter. I'm very goal-oriented. I mean, that's why you hired me.
Well, I was going to say, one of the things that you're busy with is in March, you're doing this class on money management for creatives, which what I do with my school and the classes done is I book people for classes that I personally want to take. And so this works out extraordinarily well for me because so I'm looking forward. That's how Jen's project management class ended up coming into being. I was like, show us, teach us, show us your ways, Jennifer Brozek.
Well,
go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead, Jen.
It's like when it comes to organization, I had to be very organized. I am high functioning autistic. That was not known until I was an adult. I had a military family. So you had to be I'm also Gen X. I mean, we're the generation that turned 30 at 10 and at 50, we're still 30. I mean, I was given chores. I wasn't told how to get them done, but I needed to get them done. And once I became a full-time writer and editor, I was my own boss. And I'm really glad that I was a self-starter who could figure things out, because when you work at home, even before the pandemic, I mean, a lot of people started understanding how hard it is to work at home when the pandemic happened. But I've been doing this for over 17 years full time now. And I'm an editor, I'm an author, I do media tie-in writing, I've done podcasting and voice acting. I now do some Twitch streaming. It's like, how do you do all that stuff without burning out? Well, you keep 3 different types of schedules and you learn how you work, how well you work, how fast you work on an average basis. How fast do you write on an average day? Not a good day, not a bad day. And you figure it out over a week or a month's time, so that when somebody comes to you with a project that you are dying to do, and they're like, but it's due on this date, and you know where your due dates are, and you're like, all right, I can do that if I'm on deadline mode, if the internet doesn't exist until I get my 2,000 words.
And that's the internet is a big distraction. I mean, it's a huge distraction, because it's all of that information. And I mean, it's a great tool, don't get me wrong, because, oh wait, I need some research. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Now for me, I write in the 80s because that's where my jam is. And I've gone and bought travel books from London and France and all these things, because while the internet's great, some of those places don't exist and they will not be on the internet. And so and it's a challenge to go back and write from that time period, because we don't have the tech. We don't have that tech. And so there's not that instant gratification, but there's still their own issues.
Well, a lot of stories can be ruined by, people actually talking to each other. So
so many
making sure
them,
the cell phone doesn't work or whatever is a big thing. I just played in a Buffy game, a mini arc on Shadows of Nox. But it was set in 2005. And all of us are like, were cell phones in schools a thing? Or, we couldn't remember where things was. I mean, by 2005, I'm 25 years old. I'm working full time. I think I was working for 3DO at that point. But it's just remembering what tech was actually when, and having teenagers today unironically ask, were telephone booths a thing? Or is that just a movie thing? And it's like, you know what? They don't, it is an interesting question to look at. So if you extrapolate in the future of where we are now and where we're going to be in 50 years, where somebody says, was Zoom actually a thing?
Yeah.
Did you have would you really do that?
I actually had this thought this morning, because on Instagram, there's all this People Choice Award pictures coming through, and I'm looking at them. I'm going, who the hell is that? And I'm thinking to myself, wait a second, go back to when you were in high school and you had your own celebrities and all these people were coming up. And yes, I still knew the older actors, because AMC at the time was all the classic movies that I would watch. But now it's like, I find myself being in the position that my mother was in, going, but my mom also had the rags. She loved the scandal rags. But still, there were some people, she's like, well, who's that? And MTV was the bane of her existence. That's going to rot your mind. But the fact of the matter is, I'm now at that point going, who the hell is this? Now I know some people, but some of them, I'm just, especially reality stars, I have no clue. I'm just like, unless I've heard enough gossip in the ethers about it, I have no clue. And I'm like, are you that out of touch now? Are you going to be an old broad?
No.
What's going on? But this is what happens, I think.
It is. Well, it's also, it's such a scattered world. I mean, it's so much more access to things. I mean, because remember back in the day of 3 television channels and no internet.
Oh, wait. And the channels went off at midnight
with the
flag coming up.
I'd forgotten that. Oh, God. Yep. Remember getting up super early and it would just be that screen with like So,
remember running to the TV on Saturday mornings to watch cartoons and Kung Fu theater?
Yes.
That was the high point of my week, I think, was Saturday morning cartoons. I for at least a while. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, in New Orleans, the Saturday morning cartoon started off with the early morning Christian shows of Davy and Goliath and Jot, and then we moved on to the others. But that's
I
the way
do
it worked.
remember Davy and Goliath
Yeah.
because we
Oh,
had
Davy.
several religious channels here, Lester Sumrall and then some other ones. Yeah.
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 I mean,
Yeah.
when you look at tech, there's a song that an obscure song kind of by Duran Duran, but your Gen X, you shouldn't. Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, which one is which one?
Well, back in '93, they released a song called "Too Much Information," and the thing about it is that song is more relevant now
Yeah.
than back then, because now the internet really wasn't a huge thing in '93. It was just in its infancy, and now it's like, yeah, we are constantly bombarded. But
Oh,
they were
yeah.
talking basically about cable coming at you, but it's like now we
Yeah.
get it
Yeah.
everywhere.
Well, and now not only that, but we carry the source of it
Mhm,
with us, right?
mhm.
And so it's just I'm always I like to people watch, and so I'm always struck by how many people are just looking at their phones as opposed to I don't know, looking at the world, looking at the other people. So
I mean, how many people do you see on a date now? And it's like they're not on a date; they're on a date with
no,
their
they're
phone, and that you
yeah,
just happen to be
yeah,
sitting across from somebody.
yeah, yeah.
I
I try
mean,
to be, I mean, that's one of the things I try to be courteous about is when I am eating with somebody or hanging out with them, I try not to be kind of on the phone, and it just seems so rude.
well,
I,
go ahead.
I'm sorry, just this is a few years ago. I was at a conference down in Florida, and we all went out to dinner. And the next table over to us was like 12 to 15 people, and they were all deaf. And they were talking in sign language, and everybody was watching people's faces, and there were conversations going on, and everybody was involved, and nobody was looking at their phone. And then I kind of looked at my table, and at least I think like 5 of the 10 people were all, had the phone out, and it was just such a difference. And I cut you off there.
No, I was just going to go back to, I mean, we all know this. We all grew up before we had a cell phone. Let's go over to my friend's house.
Oh yeah,
Well, let me call. Oh, they're not there. Well, maybe I'll just drive by and see if they're there. And if they're there, it'll work out. And if it doesn't, then I won't see them. I mean,
yeah,
we weren't, you could go to a restaurant and you could eat a meal without anybody bothering you. And
yeah,
now it's like people can find you wherever you are,
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
which is
I
kind of
did
wild.
have I have a neighborhood that that's near a school, and my husband and I take walks from time to time. And I guess it was in the fall of last year, there were like 5 kids on bicycles shouting at each other about, oh, we should go get so and so. I don't know, is so and so home? I don't know. We should just go there. And it was this really wholesome moment
Yeah.
that um I'm pretty sure they all had phones, but nobody they just wanted to go out there, check
Yeah.
and see if their friend was there and go. Um, and I think we're starting to get to that point with the youngest generation that they automatically start taking their phone and flipping it over and not paying attention to it because they have watched their parents not pay attention to them. They have watched, the other generations either get distracted by, get lambasted by, just not understand the technology. And this latest generation, they're going backwards. And no, I don't want the phone. I mean, yeah, the phone's a tool, but it's so common now. I don't care. And one of the things I've seen with the 21, 22, 23-year-olds, besides the interest of them going to non-alcoholic bars, every one of them, either they have specific rules about everybody, they stack their phones up, and if anybody grabs the phone, they pay the bill.
Oh, that's interesting. I
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting that there's this teeter-totter effect of we didn't have tech, so we want tech. We had tech, and then the next generation is like, well, we have better tech and we know how to use it better. And then there's the youngest generation going, well, yeah, you know how to use it better. We also know how much it's
How not
destroyed
to
you,
use
and
it.
you
Yeah.
have not paid attention to us. And then so it's this teeter-totter effect of how people use technology.
Yeah.
And the Grimm's fairy tales is the term, cautionary tales of people living their young lives online. I'm so glad there were no cell phones when I was
Oh,
a
yeah.
teenager, because I did some stupid shit as a teenager. And I'm glad none of it got caught on film.
Well, we had a video camera we took to the mall, so well, there is something that was me and my
And some
friend.
has been preserved.
Me and my friend, we faked a British accent. We had two of our male friends following us around, and yeah, they all bought it, and it's preserved on a VHS tape in my collection.
Until the VHS tape degrades.
That's it.
It's still good, and I have it, the capability of transferring it, but I will never let it see the light of day.
Why not?
Because it's one of those things. It's one of those youthful things, and then I don't talk to those people anymore, so there's the whole liability of aspect of putting this out there. And
Oh, yeah, you don't want
Well,
to
there is that.
invade their privacy. Well, I think that's a very valid thing. I think another thing that the younger generation is aware of is that it is invasive to put somebody's likeness up, and that, what is it, in the comic book conventions, cosplay is not consent, and people are good about that, I think.
Right. I mean, I have a project coming out. I'm going to kickstart at the end of March called Dear Pen Pal, Belgium 1980. And I'm literally, if people back this, they will get 2 physical letters from me a month for a year from fictionalized me living in Belgium in 1980.
Nice.
And obviously I had a family then, and I had to talk to my sister and my brother about it. And my sister was all over it. She was like, I'm intrigued. I want to be in it. And she reminded me of stuff that I had forgotten. My brother, on the other hand, has decided not. He did not want to be as part of it. And I absolutely respect his desire not to be part of it. So I have we're going to have a coloring book that goes with it. So my brother, who is my twin, but my brother in the comic, in the Dear Pen Pal, is got a different name, completely different look. And it's because my real life brother's like, I don't want to be a part of this. And I'm like, okay,
Fair enough.
that is all
Yeah.
you. I respect that. And I think the more we go along, the more technology invades our life, there will be this weird balance between consent and privacy invasion. Usually the privacy invasion by corporations and government, but
I mean, we've seen it happen with, revenge porn. We've seen that happen. I mean, you're talking about pen pal letters, and I'm going to skew a little bit because that was a saving grace at one point. I had English pen pals, I had French pen pals, and we don't have that now because we have the internet. And granted, I get to do this and we can talk face to face, but there was something about waiting to get that letter in the mailbox that was
really
just
nice.
Which is why I'm doing that project, and it's the whole ephemera of it.
Yeah,
the ephemeral nature.
Go ahead.
Kind of going back to that idea of the invasiveness. I mean, one of the complicating factors that is just emerging right now is AI stuff. And do you want to talk about revenge porn? Like the guy that made those really fucked up pictures of Taylor Swift. I mean,
I did not see that, and I'm glad I didn't. The one I heard about was somebody took a person's voice, someone who was a podcaster or YouTuber, deep faked it, called her parents, said, I've just been in an accident and I've killed 2 people.
Oh my
I
God.
need bail money.
Oh my God, back to the scams.
And it was her voice. And the bank basically said, please call your daughter. And directly, and her daughter, the daughter's like, what? No, I didn't. So that is something, as a podcaster, you as also a podcaster, YouTuber, it's like our voices are out there now.
Yeah.
And
no, go ahead, finish.
It's like anybody could take them and make us say, and I'm using double quotes there, anything.
Mm-hmm. Well, and what I was going to say is before the deep fake started, so we're talking about 5-6 years ago. I was in the car and I got a voicemail from somebody, and yes, this is a known scam. I got a voicemail saying that there was an arrest warrant out for me and that I needed to pay a bill and blah 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 blah. And at first I was like, what the hell? I didn't do anything, and all right, fine. The next morning I get a call from my father. I'm like, yeah, dad, my dad doesn't call me. Okay. So for my dad to call me, I said, what's going on? Well, I got this call. Okay. What'd you get a call for? Somebody's got an arrest warrant out for you. I told him I didn't know who you were and that we were estranged, We haven't talked, but you better take care of this because you're going to go to jail. I'm like, Dad, it's a scam. No, it's not. You better, Dad, it's a scam. I sent him all the information. Yeah. Fast forward to last year, and my dad was scammed out of some money. He lost his Facebook account and was scammed out of money. And my dad is an intelligent man, but so I get totally what you're saying about, yeah, they can do whatever they want with my voice, with my likeness. I mean, you remember that whole app that could make a person's picture come to life. So just being able to do that, you have to be more discerning, which goes back to your book. Really, this all wraps back into the book, because when you think about it, we have technology that can create something, a narrative, to make it look like somebody committed a crime that they had nothing to do with.
Yeah.
And how do you stop that? We have movies that support this, like Minority Report. That was all about psychics, but it also talked about technology, about the crime was going to happen beforehand. We have Blade Runner, that we had those kind of tech things, and RoboCop, all these movies that have kind of illuminated to that. And of course there's Terminator. And but we look at this and go, oh, it's just a movie. But sometimes fiction bleeds into reality. So, here's the big question. AI is a great tool, yes. But at what point, if you can spend an afternoon with Chat GPT, which I've never used, and you can get all this information, is that information really true? And where did that information come from?
It's not.
Right. So this is what I'm saying. So we're creating false narratives occasionally, because somebody's giving you information that is not true, but you're going to listen to it anyway.
Yeah. Yeah.
One of the things that I read about why corporations want to use AI is when they commit a crime, there is, quote unquote, no one to blame because AI told them to do it, or AI did it. AI stole the image. AI did this thing. I mean, there's been an article that came out recently about what flowers are safe around your cats, and like the very first plant the Chat GPT said was safe were lilies,
which is not true.
No,
lilies are incredibly lethal to cats.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, just the pollen is lethal, and I'm wondering how far corporations who use AI are going to go to push that the illegality of whatever they want. Like Spotify with Findaway Voices. Did you hear about that one?
No, what was that?
Oh, go ahead.
Sorry.
Well, you can...
No, I don't know all the details. I just know enough about it.
Findaway Voices. Do I still have the article? No.
There's a big backlash about it.
Findaway Voices, owned by Spotify, basically say, if you have your novel on our service, you give us
non-revocable rights to be able.
Yes, but it's not exclusive. Right. Non-revocable rights to use this, change this, make extrapolations of your work. Mm-hmm. And you can't sue us. We don't owe you anything. We get to take everything. I mean, it is ruinous, the amount of stuff that this thing wanted.
The second book I wrote, I did it because a publishing house had an open contest, a legit publishing house, not a vanity pub. We're talking a legit. And I wrote the book and I got to the contract, and there was a line in that contract that said, if we happen to write a book just like yours, you can't sue us.
Oh,
And
wow.
I said at that moment, I'm like, thank you very much. I've got another book for my collection. I'll change it up to be able to fit into my series. And here we go.
It's one of the things I say about all the all contests, especially a lot of people want to get into writing IP, which is intellectual property, writing in other worlds, anything for Star Trek, Star Wars, any of the role-playing games, Valdemar, any of that. That's IP work. A lot of contests say, once you submit you do your submission, we own it, lock, stock, and barrel. Whether you win, lose, or place, we own this now. And I was just like, nope, I'm out.
Yeah.
I'm out.
But I mean, you want that stardom. You want to be part of that. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, I do think sometimes, back when I was working with SFWA, the Science Fiction Fantasy Writers Association, sometimes this was a result of people just not understanding how intellectual property worked. And you would get somebody with just a terrible contract for fiction where it'd be like, we own this now. And, and you would talk to them and they would say, oh, yeah, we just grabbed that off the internet from a nonfiction, thing or whatever, which one of the reasons that we started doing or kept kind of renewed the idea of model contracts. So I just like some of this stuff is just sheer incompetence in blundering around. I think corporations are evil. I mean, just sort of without any question, and they're going to maximize stuff as much as they can. But I think a lot of times when it's human beings involved that are not billionaires, it's just people not understanding all the consequences.
Mm-hmm. I just think that if you're going to write an original book on spec, which means they don't writing anything on spec means, yes, you can write for me. I don't guarantee I will buy it from you.
Yeah.
If you write, say, a Dark Crystal book for a contest and you do not win, but thus you don't get anything, you get no recognition. But the book that comes out isn't the book that was the one that won. It's very much like the second book, the other one. And say you were the person who wrote that second book, but you get no credit for it because the moment you sent that book in by the rules of the contest, and it's with, I know IP corporations do it to protect their IP because ideas are not hard. Ideas are a dime a dozen. It's the execution that's hard and messy. Right. So it's like if somebody wants to write some fan fiction in the Battletech or Shadowrun that I have written, I can't read it, or I personally will not read it. But if I have already planned an arc which will have that thing that you say is your original idea, if I've written it and somebody else said, no, wait, that you stole that story from me, that's why that's in the contest rules. And yet I'm like, if you have the wherewithal to write an entire novel, maybe not do it on a contest.
Yeah.
No. And that's, I mean, for me, it was a challenge because I wrote the novel in a month and I had never done that before, but it was like, it gave me the push to do it. And it's one of my best received books.
Oh, good.
But it was all a process. And here's the thing, it's not just writing, because I talked to two contestants now from The Voice. And the first guy I talked to, he told me that his coach told him, you do not want to win. Second place is good. You do not want to win, because if you win, because he told me about how they craft your narrative, which we get that, it's TV, but how they're going to market you, and you're going to sing what they want you to sing, and da, 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 da. And it's like, when you're entering contest, you think, okay, most people look at the outcome. They don't look at all the details and the minutia. I mean, how many people sent in a book to this corporation thinking, okay, I might get discovered, and they didn't read that line. And I have a friend who's published through Llewellyn, and when I ran across that line, I'm like, did you have this in your contract? And she's like, no. I'm like, okay. Because I knew I had to read that contract thoroughly before I sent that in. And I think
But
go ahead.
that's something so many writers don't understand. And if you are a writer listening to this podcast and you take one thing away, please take away the idea that you should read your contracts and understand what's going on in them. So
Also, read your contract like someone who a lawful evil lawyer who hates you is going to administer it.
Yeah.
It does not matter who you signed the contract with or how friendly you are with them. What's on the paper and how it can be interpreted is what matters. It's I think it was actually Kat who told me to that you never want to sign the first contract you're given because it's a boilerplate. You need to take that contract and massage it until it fits your project, your needs, what rights you're willing to give up. If you don't have an agent, I didn't have an agent for the first 10 years of my writing career. You go find somebody who knows enough about contracts, or you go look on the SFWA website about, oh, there's a kitty in the background. Sorry.
It's okay. It's Chloe. That is
you
Chloe.
You make sure the contract suits you, and if you don't know how to do that, you find someone who does.
Yeah.
Because people in the publishing business can promise you the world. It's not real until it's on a contract, and even then it's suspect because contracts get broken all the time.
Yeah.
I think that's, another takeaway for anybody listening to the podcast that is a writer is the fact that this is really a business. We don't look at that aspect. We look at, I'm writing a book. It's going to be great. It's going to be fun. And people are going to read it. Okay. But even if you are even if you have a publishing house with you, you still have to do the marketing. You still have to create this as a business. And I think that's not what most people think about it. They think it's just, I'm writing a book, it's going to be great, and that's it. And I think before, back in the day, it must have been easier that the book companies, the book publishers would actually help you market. I don't know that that's the case so much anymore, because you have to have your social media and you have to be active on your social media. So, it's a business when it comes down to it. It is a business, and there's business expenses and there's business dealings you have to know and be aware of.
Yeah. This is all absolutely true. Kind of discouraging, but it's also where, it's possible to do.
Right,
I mean,
but
one of the cool things. Oh, go ahead.
What's happening right now, don't let people stop you from writing. And because every voice out there actually really does matter, because only they tell the stories that only they can tell.
I'm about to teach a class at the library here, the local library, about writing, how to become a writer, or taking being a writer and becoming an author, which it's all the same thing, but people in their mind with their mindset. So we have this billboard in town. It's not a huge billboard, but it's really big enough. It's electronic. And I figured the library puts up classes all the time and everything else. So the other morning I'm at the stoplight and I see myself on the billboard with the class. And I'm just like, okay. I wasn't expecting that. It was kind of shocking, but it was a nice touch as a writer, or as an author. You're sitting there going, well, look, that's a nice little bit of promo there, but it was still kind of shocking because you're not expecting that. So it's weird when you get success, though. It's weird when you have a little success, even if it's just that.
Well, this is such a kind of like weird and wacky profession, and often very thankless, but there's also just these kind of wonderful, bizarre little moments where, like you see yourself on a billboard, or I had LeVar Burton call me up and do a story on my podcast.
Nice.
on his podcast. He read one of my stories. And and that was like one of those moments where I'm like, oh,
that's
Jen,
awesome.
you have a surreal moment where you were just like, oh.
Well, the two that stand out in my mind were earlier in my career. When I said I was going to Oricon one year, somebody I did not know started doing the squee, Jennifer Brozek's coming to our convention, on social media. And that turned out to be Wendy Wagner.
Oh, I love Wendy.
She's one of the best writers and editors I know. The other was at a convention, I had someone show up with 6 of my anthologies that I had edited. And I just kind of looked at her and she says, well, if it's a Brozek anthology, it's going to be a good one. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm an adjective?
Wow.
I'm
That's
an adjective.
awesome.
That's so cool.
Very cool.
I mean,
Very,
other
very
ones
cool.
are like, I wrote on a video game called Shadowrun Returns for Harebrained Schemes. I was at Gen Con and I walked in with one of those big rooms where there's like hundreds of people. And Harebrained Schemes was on the stage talking about Shadowrun Returns. And I was in the back with one of my other editors who actually recommended me for the job. And in the middle of it, I don't know if it was Mitch Glittleman or Jordan Weissman. He says, "Oh, and back there is Jennifer Brozek. She's one of the writers for Shadowrun Returns." And like the entire audience turned, and there was this "ooh," and like they all clapped, and I was just like, "Oh, talk about an
Nice.
energy exchange."
That's so awesome.
Oh my gosh, I
Nice.
could get used to this.
Yeah.
But it was weird. And the other one was the first Gen Con during the pandemic that I actually went to.
Mhm.
People literally ran to my booth.
Oh, nice.
An
Literally
author.
ran.
That's
Here,
cool.
oh, she's here.
Like they ran to my booth. I've seen people run for Jim Butcher and for Charlene Harris and, to get to them first. But I had like 3 people run to my booth specifically to get my newest BattleTech. And I was
Oh,
like,
yeah.
this is so weird.
That's awesome.
Why would they
I'm
do
scoring serious points with my little cousin because Jen's going to give me copies of her autographed books that I'm going to ship to him while we will exchange them when we are going to view the eclipse.
Yeah.
Nice.
We're going to do a joint trip and watch the eclipse, and I think that will be fun.
Yeah, I've never seen a full solar eclipse, and I really want to. So
Yeah.
that's one of the trips we're doing this year.
That should be great. I mean, it should be a lot of fun for you guys, and it'll be intense, but it should be good. It should be.
So what is your strangest thing, Dawn?
There was one person that I wanted to give my book to, that since I wrote it, that it was like the dream person I wanted to give the book to. And I knew that person was in town, and I was sitting in the hotel lobby waiting for this person, and something told me to get up, to go upstairs and get something to eat because I was hungry. And I got up and I looked, there was another lobby, and I was like, oh, there's another lobby. So I was distracted for a moment. I turned around, I hit the elevator button, and he walked out the door. And I was just like, hi. And he's like, hi. And I had met him before. So it's not like he doesn't know me. It's been like 19 years since the last time I've seen him. And I said, I doubt you remember me. He's like, oh no, I remember you. I don't remember your name, but I remember you. I'm like, okay. And I said, I got something for you. He's like, what? I said, I got a book. He's like, really? I was like, yeah. And I wrote it. He was just smiling. I was like, you wrote it? And I'm like, yeah. And he was tickled. We took a picture and that was it. And I'm not going to name names.
That's awesome.
But yeah, it was the person that I really wanted to give the book to, and they are a celebrity. So it was like, I did it. It was a big goal, and I accomplished it. So yeah, that was seeing the smile on his face. I would say that had to be one of the best moments.
Mhm.
So
Especially when they do remember you.
yeah, I mean, a person of his nature after 19 years still remembering me, that was pretty freaking cool.
That is super.
yeah.
I love that.
So that's my surreal moment. But yeah, I haven't, my first book, I've already had my first signing at Barnes and Noble, because my first book, I wrote most of it at Barnes and Noble, and they were closing the location, and I became friends with everybody. They were having a new writer's night. And so my friend's like, if you get your book finished, if you get it all done and ready, you can be a part of it. I'm like, all right. So I did. So I've already had my signing at Barnes and Noble. So that was kind of surreal, just being there it was with some other authors, but still, being able to say that I've done this. So yeah, that was kind of cool. So there's a lot more to do, I know, but
I think technology is wonderful in the fact that I was a guest of honor in a convention in Sweden and one in Finland, because people found my website and they were looking for women authors who are gamers and authors, or authors and editors. And I know, Kat, you've had people contact you to take, I think you went to Spain.
I had the weirdest thing happen, which is like a few years ago. A guy contacted me and said, I want to translate some of your stories into Spanish, and I want to do a collection. And I was like, okay, which of the collections do you want to translate? He's like, no, 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 I want a new one. And he's like, and yeah, I think I can get the city of Barcelona to bring you over for this Barcelona Fantastic Genre Festival. I was like, yeah, that's going to happen. Because you know how it is. Like people,
Yeah, yeah. Let me blow
But
smoke up your ass and then
that's
Yeah.
it. And then by God, it did happen. And he's like, come over to Barcelona and we'll do 3 different festivals. And I've got an apartment that you can stay in because he had extra place. And I ended up spending a month in Spain. Absolutely loved it. And then this year, no, last year went back and ran a writing retreat there in an 11th century castle, which is its own whole story. But yeah, but that's how I met my publisher, Christian, and he is awesome. Shout out to Christian if you are listening. But just really, it was just one of these, sometimes random people contact you and are like, do you want to do X? And you're like, fuck yes, I do.
I mean, after sometimes you have to do a little bit of research to make sure that
You
the
always make sure. I
I
don't
mean,
just in case any scammers are listening and going, well, this woman's an easy target and has just figured out how to get.
yeah,
No,
yeah.
check it out.
well, like the GothCon, what they do is they ask the previous year who did they recommend it, and it turned out to be Kenneth Haidt, who writes a lot of role-playing game
Oh, nice,
and
yeah.
Cthulhu stuff, and Ken had just written for me, and so he recommended me, and they're like, and you can talk to Kenneth about
Yeah,
how
yeah,
this is. And the cool thing about GothCon is all of the stuff for me was paid for by the government because as my handler there said, well, we're gamers. It's not like we don't understand how to fill out forms.
That's so
So
awesome.
that's how that happened. I don't remember how TrackCon in Finland happened. Oh my God. I love going to these places, and
Yeah,
they get really excited when I'm like, I would like to go to one of your favorite museums, because they always ask the guests of honor, what do you want to do while you're here? I'm like, play Pokemon Go, go to museums.
Nice. Nice. And going back to scammers real quick, for anybody that's an author, you do have to be careful of people calling
yeah,
you once. I mean, I did the romance writers convention
Oh,
yeah,
recently. It was all virtual. But after that, I started getting really weird phone calls on my voicemail about we're going to help promote you, blah, blah, blah. And
yeah,
then you also get the Facebook scammers,
mhm.
that are like, hey, I can help promote your book. Uh-huh. And to be honest, after my husband passed, I hired a public relations agent. That was the worst thing in the world for me to do because she did absolutely nothing and I blew
yeah,
$7,000.
yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it was a very
there's a lot
costly
of
mistake.
bad actors out there.
But
Mhm.
her looking at the website, you would have thought she knew exactly what she was doing. And yes, I have an NDA, so I can't really name names, but I can still talk about it because I went
Yeah,
through this and it's a very costly mistake. So the best person that can be your own PR agent, especially if you're an indie, is yourself.
it
Yeah,
really
I-
is. And
absolutely.
I believe there's a statistic that if you have something like 1,000 loyal fans, you have a career.
Yeah.
And my advice on social media and being a writer is, one, have a pet. Because your pets will sell your books. Two, be a real person.
Hmm.
And the third thing is share the love.
Yeah,
Rising tides lift all boats. And it's like I have a thing. If you have a new spec fic project out, I have something called Tell Me. It's kind of like the big idea, or my favorite things, or the 5 things I've learned. And we sit down, quote unquote. What would you tell me if we were sitting down over a meal? Something that's not in your book, something to connect you to the reader.
Yeah.
And you tell me about it in an essay, and then it goes out all over my social media, hits about 20,000 people. And it's like, it's one of those things where I learned something about the author or the artist, because it's, spec
Yeah.
fic is all over. Um, and it connects the reader to that creator in a way that they wouldn't necessarily get. And I like doing that. I've done over 150 of them now on my blog. So
That's nice.
that is an offer that's out there. If you go to my blog, you can find the tell me and where to submit.
That's very nice. And I mean, for me as an author, I had one lady from Australia. She became an author after, but she read my book, the second book, and she wrote this review. She's like, yeah, I didn't plan to sit down and read the whole thing. I was going to read a little bit and then go do housework. And by the time I finished, it was dinner time and I was glad. So she's promoted it that way. And then she promoted me, because she's reread it several times, with a bunch of other authors that were bigger name in the genre. And I was just like, that is an honor. I mean, when you're when you're new, it's just like, wow, you think that much about my book? So and I'm sure you guys had those moments in your early careers. It was kind of like, wow, okay, somebody actually, when you start connecting with people, that's the whole gift of writing. It doesn't, I mean, yeah, money's great and everything else, but when you're actually connecting, you're getting that feedback from people that your story really meant so much to me.
Mm-hmm.
That is the joy of really being an author,
mm-hmm.
more than anything.
Agreed.
Is to be able to take somebody on a journey. So on that note, I know we didn't really cover a lot of your books, but we did kind of talk about tech and everything. Is there anything that we haven't discussed that you would like to say?
Think we should talk about the Rambo Academy for Wayward Writers.
Oh, we had mentioned it slightly earlier, but yeah, I have an online school and writing community. I do classes, the workshop in Spain last year, this year in New Mexico, which is going to be super exciting. And then there's a community where you have a short story discussion group and the co-writing that Jen participates in, and Wednesday writing games and all sorts of good stuff. So if you go to academy.catrambo.com, you can find out information about that.
Nice.
Thank you, Jen.
And do you have anything to add, Jennifer?
My big thing is going to be pushing Dear Pen Pal Belgium 1980. Right now, we have a backer kit launch page. We don't send any email out on it. We just want people to sign up so that the week before the Kickstarter goes live, we can remind you that it's going to happen. And won't you be my pen pal?
Nice. Nice. Well, I thank you ladies for coming on the show.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This has been delightful. And anytime you want to have us back, I know I would be happy to. Jen's usually pretty easy about that too. So
Cool.
Thank you so much. Take care.
You might have heard my voice hosting the Better To podcast, but did you know I'm also the mastermind behind the Better To Burnout book series? The stories unravel the lives of Nigel Hartigan, the groovy bassist of Sambuca Fedora, the stunning singer-model Ava Richards, and the suave record executive singer Russell Langford. Love, romance, and drama run rampant as their lives tangle up. But brace yourself, folks, because not every tale has a happy ending. Snag your copy today from most online booksellers. So the conversation with Kat and Jen, well, it was a little all over the place. And yes, we did discuss writing and we discussed writing techniques, and they have a lot of advice and a lot of great knowledge. And I advise you to check out Kat's school. But I think that overall, it wasn't just a conversation about writing. It was a conversation about life in general and some of the challenges we face and how, tech has changed the world, but yet the younger generations now are starting to say, you know what, not doing it, not going to play with it. So, when we talk about pendulum swings, that's life, because sometimes we have a very conservative life and then we go and have a very liberal life. Because you can see it in our history between the 50s and the 60s and the 70s, how things change and how things have shifted back. And that's life. Life is a circle, and we go through and we work through these issues. So right now, we're going to shift back away from tech possibly. And I want to touch on the fact that, it's kind of scary what they were saying about corporations and AI, and the fact that, yeah, somebody could take my voice and do whatever the hell they wanted with it, which is very scary. But that being said, you have to be more discerning about what you believe. And that's true with anything, because like they were saying, company putting out an article saying that lilies are just fine for cats, and we all know that's not true. It would be like somebody saying poinsettias are fine for cats, and it's not true. But if somebody says it and they say it enough, people tend to believe it because they don't have the time or the luxury of time to investigate things. When at this time in this part of the world, part of the game, part of where we're at, you need to be more discerning about what is going on in the world and what is going on and what is real and what is not. And as a fiction writer, I create my own worlds. But in reality, we can't do that. We have to be aware of what's going on and not believe all the distractions that come at us. And that's the thing. A lot of the times, this stuff is created for a distraction point, a distraction to take off what they want us not to see. And I'm not playing conspiracy theory. I'm just stating a fact that why do we create these things other than a distraction, other than to be known? And if there's no law in place, i.e., the Taylor Swift thing, I can create it, and guess what? I'll get notoriety because everybody's going to see my stuff and it's going to go viral. And if the goal in life right now is to go viral, that's a problem because guess what? That's fleeting. And as somebody was saying again this morning, I overheard somebody saying the fact that Andy Warhol had said we'd all be famous for 15 minutes. And with social media, we can do that. But the thing about fame that most people don't realize is it's fleeting. And we have to realize that you have to live your life authentically as you. As Jennifer was saying, you know, you can't constantly sell this image. You can't constantly sell this fake thing. You have to be you. You have to be real. And you have to connect with your audience. And that means being a real person. And that doesn't mean sharing all your dirty laundry. It just means you being real and true to yourself. So, on that note, I'd like to thank you guys, as always, for tuning in, and thank Rich Zai from 30 Year Audio for doing the production, and Fast Susie for the music. And whenever you guys listen to the podcast, whether it's night, weekend, morning, whenever, I thank you. I appreciate you. And, well, I'll catch you next time, guys. Bye.